Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today. Okay, let's jump right into this. We're so used to looking at the human mind in incredibly simple terms, often boiling our entire mental capacity down to just a single test score. But what if we looked at the mind not as a flat number, but as a complex, multidimensional blueprint? Today, we are exploring exactly that through a fascinating model that literally changed the way psychologists view human intellect. For the longest time, the psychological community and our education systems asked this exact question. And honestly, they mostly answered with a resounding yes. We've all heard of the traditional IQ score, or what Charles Spearman back in 1904 famously called the G factor, general intelligence. The whole idea was that your performance on literally any mental task was dictated by this one overarching metric. But let's be real. Does a single number actually capture the incredible diversity of human thought? For decades, we relied on that unitary model, one general intelligence factor dictating everything. But then, a completely radical theory exploded onto the scene. It proposed that human intelligence isn't just one thing, but is instead made up of up to a staggering 180 distinct abilities. Yeah, you heard that right, 180. Just let that sink in for a second. Think about your own skills, the things you completely excel at, and the things you really find challenging. This massive number teases the exciting possibility that we all have 180 different types of cognitive abilities just waiting to be uncovered, tested, and utilized. Here's our roadmap for today. Section 1, Beyond a Single IQ Score. Section 2, The Structure of Intellect. Then we'll hit sections 3, 4, and 5, covering the three dimensions: mental operations, the contents, and the products. And finally, section 6, Calculating 180 Cognitive Abilities. Let's do this. Section 1, Beyond a Single IQ Score. Redefining SMART. So why the shift? Well, a single test score just couldn't explain why, say, a brilliant mathematician might totally struggle in an art class. Researchers realized we needed a better model. Enter psychologist J.P. Guilford in 1967 and his brilliant solution, the Structure of Intellect, or SOI model. If you picture his matrix, it looks a bit like a Rubik's Cube of the mind, doesn't it? Guilford hypothesized that intelligence required a three-dimensional space to truly capture how we process information. Section 2, The Structure of Intellect, Building the Cube. Guilford's big argument was that intelligence is the intersection of three specific dimensions. I mean, you can't just have a thought in a vacuum, right? Every time your brain fires up, it utilizes a specific mental operation, basically how we think. It processes specific content, the raw material we are thinking about, and it yields a specific product, the resulting outcome of that thought. Section 3, Dimension 1, Mental Operations. Think of these 6 operations as the actual engine of our intelligence. First up, cognition, just straight up understanding information. Then, memory recording, encoding the data, and memory retention, actually holding onto it so you don't forget it 5 minutes later. Next, we have convergent production. That's zeroing in on the one correct answer, versus divergent production, which is basically brainstorming outside the box. Finally, evaluation, judging if an answer is actually any good. These are the gears constantly turning in your mind. Section 4, Dimension 2, The Contents. Okay, so we have our engine, but what raw data is it chewing on? Our minds handle 5 types of data inputs: visual content like shapes, auditory content like sound patterns, symbolic content, think numbers or letters, semantic content, which is all about words and meanings, and finally behavioral content. Behavioral is super interesting. It's your ability to read a room and interpret social cues. That is a massive variety of data. Section 5, Dimension 3, The Products. All right, we have the engine, we have the raw material. The products represent the final structural form that information takes. We start simple with units, just a single piece of information, then classes, grouping things together, relations, connecting different things, systems, building a whole complex web, transformations, actually altering the information, and the ultimate level, implications, which is basically predicting future consequences based on what you know. Section 6, Calculating 180 Cognitive Abilities. Here is where it all clicks together. Early versions of Guilford's Structure of Intellect model multiplied 6 operations, 5 contents, and 4 products. Doing the math on that initial calculation brought the scientific community a cube consisting of exactly 120 distinct cognitive abilities. But science keeps evolving. As research continued, the model expanded. Guilford recognized that the matrix needed a bit more granularity to truly capture human intellect. By expanding the product categories, the new math became 6 operations, 5 contents, and 5 products. Suddenly, the number of distinct, measurable mental abilities jumped to 150. We are building a massive structure here. And finally, we arrive at the ultimate, final iteration of the model. By locking in the dimensions as 6 mental operations, 5 types of contents, and 6 types of products, we multiply 6 times 5 times 6, revealing the staggering final count of 180 distinct cognitive abilities, 180 unique intersections of how we think, what we think about, and what that thought produces. Let's ground this a bit to see exactly how it works in practice. If we intersect the operation of memory with visual content and a unit product, what do we get? A highly specific skill, remembering a specific face in a crowded room. Or take cognition of semantic relations. That's just understanding the connection between 2 spoken words. If you apply divergent production to symbolic systems, you are essentially brainstorming multiple, complex mathematical equations. Every single block in that 180-piece cube represents a highly specific, real-world skill. Now, full disclosure on the legacy of this multifaceted mind model. While this massive 3D matrix was incredibly influential back in the day, it eventually faded from widespread practical testing, pretty much just due to its immense complexity. Trying to create separate, standardized tests for 180 distinct abilities? Total nightmare. However, its legacy is absolutely vital. It beautifully and permanently proved that human intelligence isn't just one big monolith. And this captures the exact essence of why Guilford's model matters so much today. Intelligence is a diverse matrix of unique strengths, not a single grade on a test. This framework gives us permission to stop looking at ourselves through the narrow lens of a single IQ score and instead see our minds as a vast, rich collection of unique tools. You might not be a math genius, but your ability to evaluate behavioral implications, reading a room, could be totally off the charts. And that brings us to the end of our explainer. But before you go, I want to leave you with this provocative question to chew on. Which of the 180 blocks in the mind's blueprint represents your hidden genius? Next time you solve a problem or learn something new, take a second to think about the operations, the contents, and the products your brain is brilliantly coordinating. Thank you so much for joining me today to explore the structure of intellect. Keep learning and keep exploring that beautiful mind of yours.